Okay, everyone, we're going to start again. I'm starting the recording now as well. If you can all just quickly send a thumbs up to me if you are able to hear me. And if you're able to see up on your screen now where it says session 3 of 3. Salama, I don't know if you want to just try your microphone one more time. I've made an adjustment on my side. Maybe it is working now.
I'm muted now. Ina, can you hear me?
Oh, no, unfortunately,
Hello?
it doesn't seem, I don't know. It doesn't seem to have worked now. We'll just jump in then with our class. Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is then our third and last session for our revision today. And this session then is going to focus on learning unit number 9. Just for those who've maybe just joined us now for Learning Unit 9, at the previous session, we just spoke through these little tips to help you in your preparation for the exam. So maybe if you missed them in the previous session, then you can just have a look at the slide for you then just to help you with your preparation. Okay, so it's just again, if you've only joined us, I'm the presenter, Ina Frost, and on the chat side, we have Salama Parker with us today. She's answering all your questions in the chats. So please optimize this time to interact with Salama and to ask her all the questions that you maybe still have to get you ready for the exam. Salama has been very busy today answering all the questions, so please continue to put them up there for us in the chats. Please remember, all of our sessions are being recorded and they will be uploaded later today to YouTube. I nearly said to ARC. They will be uploaded later today to YouTube. Remember, we have a School of Management Studies channel on YouTube. And that's then also where you can find all of our other recordings from the revision that we did on learning units 1 through to 6. This exam then is a 3-hour paper and it is out of 150 marks and it covers all the learning units in your textbook. For this last session, once again, just get your textbook ready. We're on to learning unit number 9 now. Learning unit number 9 then is the one that deals with our year-end procedures. And if you want to follow alongside with me, you can open up on page 274 of your textbook. So in Learning Unit 1, we told you about the bookkeeping and the accounting cycles. And progressively throughout the semester, we've been showing you how we go from a single transaction that takes place, how we record this transaction onto source documents, from the source documents into the journals, and then at the end of the month, how we post those journals to the general ledger, and how we prepare a trial balance. And this bookkeeping cycle, then we repeat this cycle 12 times. And then at the end of the financial year, so after we've done this 12 times, we have that final trial balance. And that is then where this learning unit number 9 now comes in. So learning unit number 9, the year-end procedures now comes after you have completed the bookkeeping cycle 12 times. And we work from that very final trial balance that has that's the summary of all the transactions that has taken place over the 12 months of the financial year. So again, in terms of your module outline, what is it that we expect you to be able to do in this learning unit? So again, make sure you go through all of our learning unit outcomes and that you are aligning your studies to these outcomes, because this is what we expect you to be able to do at the end of this module. Now, the first key thing I have to draw your attention to in terms of learning unit 9, particularly maybe for our students who are using older versions of our textbook, there was a change made in the 2026 textbook in Learning Unit 9. Previously, Learning Unit 9 only dealt with perpetual inventory, but now Learning Unit 9 also includes examples and exercises dealing with periodic inventory. So please make sure that you are making use of Learning Unit 9 from the 2026 version of the textbook when you are preparing yourself for our upcoming assessment. Now, once again, when we test you on Learning Unit number 9, once again, we can ask you theory questions. So we spoke a little bit about that in our previous session. And maybe if you've just joined us, there are 2 other sessions for exam revision. The previous sessions dealt with Learning Unit 7 and 8. As we said previously, remember, we can test you on theory in your exam paper as either a standalone question or in conjunction with an application question. So here is another example of where we tested students on theory. This was out of Learning Unit 9. And this was the 2024 exam, and there for 8 marks and for 4 marks was 2 theory questions that we asked the students. The next thing I just want to draw your attention to is specifically when we ask you, here we said define income and expenses and give the formal IFRS definition. That I want to just talk about a little bit again. If we're asking you for a definition and we're asking you specifically for the IFRS definition. So remember, in your Learning Unit number 2, we gave you a lot of different definitions. And when the question paper is like this one from 2024, where we ask for the formal definition or the formal IFRS definition, we are looking for that textbook definition. For example, for income, it's the one on page 40 of your 2026 textbook that we're looking for. And we're pretty much looking for this definition verbatim. If the question says, give us the IFRS definition. If the question said, just give it in your own words, then of course you have got more freedom in how you word or the definition of income. But please, please, please just make sure that you are checking for which one of the 2 are we asking. And it's not only now in Learning Unit 9. As I said, a lot of these definitions come out of Learning Unit 2 of the textbook. So please make sure you're giving us the correct version when we're asking it in an exam paper. So there, just the reminder then again. So here we are specifically for the formal IFRS definition. So in this past paper question, then we were definitely looking for this definition and not just for your own words. Okay, so then the next thing they asked the student to do in 2024 is they asked the student to prepare the post-closing trial balance. Now, as we said in these Learning Unit 9 questions, they're typically going to start us off by giving us a trial balance. And remember, this trial balance now will be the last trial balance at the end of month 12. So included in this trial balance now will be all the income, all the expenses for the full financial year for all 12 months. So now they're asking us to use this information to prepare the post-closing trial balance. So this is already a trial balance. So with other words, now they're asking us for a different type of trial balance. They're asking us for the post-closing trial balance. So obviously we can't just give them this one. There's obviously something else that they're looking for, and you can see it's for 23 marks. So the post-closing trial balance then, included in that trial balance is going to be your capital, your assets, and your liabilities. Okay, so in the post-closing trial balance, there's going to be no income and expenses. It's only the top half of the trial balance where we've got the capital, the assets, and the liabilities. And if I say capital, the capital number is actually going to be calculated So we're not just going to use that 741,200 that's already given to us. We need to calculate the new capital balance by taking the capital, subtracting the drawings, and then either adding or subtracting the profit or the loss for the year. And of course, the profit or the loss, that will be when we will use the income and expense amounts. And again, we're going to be making sure that we are reading all of our details with care. And you can actually see in this paper, they actually gave the students a little hint, and they said, show us your workings of the capital balance. So they already kind of told the student that, hang on, you can't just use 741,200. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for you to actually calculate your full capital, your new capital balance by subtracting drawings and adding profit or minusing net loss. So the post-closing trial balance is then quite a short trial balance. You can see the original one was quite long, but the post-closing one is then quite a short little trial balance because it only includes your assets, your liabilities, and then that new updated capital balance. But remember now, in the question, they told us that for this capital balance, you're not just going to use 741,200, you need to calculate it. So the calculation starts with that 741,200. Then we subtract the drawings. Then we add the profit or minus the loss. But we don't just have that number ready for us. So this net profit or net loss, we have to calculate that ourselves. And how do we calculate profit or loss? We take our total income minus our total expenses. So that's where this bottom half of the trial balance is now going to come into play, because that is now representing our income and our expenses. So we're going to use the numbers here in the bottom half to calculate if we made a profit or a loss so that we can use it in our capital calculation. Okay, so as I said, that's now where we're going to use these bottom numbers. So from sales to credit losses, that's our income and expense accounts. And when we subtract our expenses from our income for this particular business for the year, then there was a net loss of 2,320 rands. And now I can use this net loss as part of my capital calculation, and I can now complete my post-closing trial balance. But for all my assets and liabilities, that's pretty straightforward because I'm just going to copy them out of the trial balance that's given to me. The only thing that was a little bit tricky in this question is you had to know whether it has a debit or a credit balance. So when you're faced with a question like this, where we have to do the post-closing trial balance and we need to still calculate that new capital balance, there is in fact two ways in which we can calculate this capital balance. And I think you'll remember this from your Learning Unit 2 knowledge when we used to work with the accounting equation. So one way in which to calculate that new capital balance can be the way that we've just done, where we've taken capital minus drawings plus net profit or minus net loss. So that is one of the two formulas that you can work out to calculate. With other words, you're calculating owner's equity. So this capital balance here equals, in essence, owner's equity. So that is one way of calculating it. Is there anyone in our group today who can quickly put in the chats what can be a second way in which I can calculate this owner's equity number? So can you quickly just put it up there in the chat? Is there anyone who can just let us know what could be a second way in which to calculate the owner's equity? Okay, excellent. I'm already starting to see some answers coming up in the chats. Anyone else who wants to take a quick stab at it and let us know how to calculate owner's equity? Think about your Learning Unit 2 knowledge. Ah, excellent. Well done, students. Okay, I think from the answers there, excellent. I saw many of you remembered a second way to calculate it would be to say assets minus liabilities. So in this past exam paper then, a student could have gone one of two ways to calculate that capital balance. They could either have gone with the capital minus drawings minus net loss option, or they could have just gone straight to total assets minus total liabilities. And both of those gives us exactly the same answer. So whether you're in Learning Unit 9 or 2, remember there is two ways in which you can calculate your owner's equity. Of course, the big thing to remember is that you definitely have to show us your workings. Remember, this question was for 23 marks. So for 23 marks, we definitely want to see your workings. And remember, you're going to be showing us your actions. You're going to show us clearly which amounts are you adding and which amounts are you subtracting. So this was the 2024 past paper where they just jumped in and said, prepare the post-closing trial balance. Before we look at another past paper, I just want to show you one more thing on the post-closing trial balance. So one thing definitely to note is there's no income, there's no expense accounts on this trial balance. And then the second thing I want you to note is this trading inventory balance that I'm using here in my post-closing trial balance. If the question was using periodic inventory, then you would use your closing inventory balance here. Okay, so please remember now we said periodic inventory is now new in Learning Unit number 9. So please make sure that you just go and have a look at your post-closing trial balance for periodic inventory. In this past paper question, the question used perpetual inventory. Then, as I said, we're going to tackle another past paper question. Now we're going to look at the 2025 exam. Okay, so now we're moving over to the 2025 exam, question number 7. In this exam, then, the students were asked to do two things. You can see it was an overall of 30 marks. And they were asked to do a trading account, and they were asked to prepare the profit and loss account. Okay, so that's the two things the students had to do in 2025. So before we now can jump in with doing our trading account and our profit and loss account, first thing we have to now ask ourselves is which inventory system is being used by the business. Because remember now, we can test you for both inventory systems in this Learning Unit 9. And of course, this question, which inventory system is being used, is not just for Learning Unit 9 questions. They're also for Learning Unit 2 questions. It's also for Learning Unit 4 and 5 and 6 questions. So before you tackle a question in the exam, make sure that you ask yourself which inventory system is being used in the question, because it makes a difference in some of the entries that we make, and obviously you want to maximize your marks, so you want to be making the right entries. So in this question then, in 2025, we were using the perpetual inventory system because there in the trial balance, we see the cost of sales general ledger account. So that's immediately for us the sign that this question or this business is using perpetual inventory. And just a reminder then again, periodic inventory is new to the textbook in this year. So please make sure that you're using the 2026 version of the textbook when you prepare Learning Unit number 9. So the first thing they asked us to do was to do the trading account. And we are now specifically going to look at the trading account for perpetual inventory. So let's have a look then. So for perpetual inventory then, your trading account is going to consist out of your sales minus your sales returns minus cost of sales. Because remember again, on your trial balance, we have the cost of sales general ledger account. So we can use all three of those accounts to prepare the trading account. So the trading account is going to look like this. On the credit side is my net sales number. So it's sales minus sales returns. On the debit side is my cost of sales. If I subtract my cost of sales from my sales, that gives me my gross profit. And the gross profit is calculated as sales minus sales returns minus cost of sales. And it will be your balancing number in your trading account. So essentially, your gross profit is your difference between the credit and the debit side of your trading account. The details that we write next to it is the profit and loss account, because we're going to take this gross profit and we're going to put it in the profit and loss account. So this is what it's going to look like if the question says perpetual inventory. But let's just look for a moment, what is it going to look like if the question says periodic inventory? So let's just for a moment assume now in this past paper, they said the business used the periodic inventory system. Now our gross profit calculation is going to be a bit more of a bigger deal than what it was in the perpetual inventory system. We're still going to use net sales, so sales minus sales returns, but now we're going to add to the sales the closing inventory, and we're going to subtract your opening inventory, your purchases, your carriage on purchases, import duties, custom duties, and that's how we're going to calculate your gross profit. So with other words, now we're going to have to calculate our cost of sales like we showed you in learning unit number 6. In learning unit number 6, if you want to turn there on page 193 of learning unit 6, it's right there at the bottom of page 193. You will recall we showed you how to calculate cost of sales for periodic inventory. And so now, if your business is using periodic inventory, you'll have to go back and do that whole cost of sales calculation. So learning unit 6 now also fits into learning unit 9, because you need to be able to do your cost of sales calculation. And if you need a summer revision on learning unit 6, you guessed it, you can go back to our School of Management Studies channel on YouTube. Remember, this is on YouTube. Just type in School of Management Studies and this will come up for you. And then find our test 2 revision of learning unit number 6. Okay, and if you've maybe just joined us, remember all of our past revision videos are available to you on YouTube. They are all there. So please go and recap. If there's any of the previous work that we've done that you need revision on, they're all available to you on YouTube. Okay, so now what is the trading account going to look like in the periodic inventory system? You can see now it's a little bit more complex than what it was in the perpetual inventory system. So we still have our net sales here on the credit side. And if I say net sales, I mean sales minus sales returns. But on the credit side, I also now have my closing inventory. And this is the inventory that came from the stock take at the end of the year. Then I add those two together. And then on the debit side, I have my opening trading inventory, and that will be the number from the trial balance. I have my net purchases, so I also need to subtract purchase returns. I have all those other costs that I've incurred to get my inventory ready for resale. So I add all of those amounts together. I subtract them from my credit total, and that once again gives me the gross profit. And this time around, the gross profit calculation is a little bit more complex because it's sales minus sales returns plus closing inventory minus opening inventory minus purchases, carriage on purchases, and the like. But it is still the balancing number in the trading account. So this number here, highlighted in the bright pink color, is still the difference between your total credits and your debits, because essentially all these debits is your cost of sales calculation. If you want to go and practice doing a trading account for periodic inventory, then please look at question 9.4 and revision question 21. But these two questions are in the 2026 version of the textbook. Okay, so you need to be using the 2026 version of the textbook. Now, when you're faced with a question like this one, where they say prepare the trading account and prepare the profit and loss account, your best option is to follow the 8 year-end steps. Because if you follow these steps, this will help you then to make sure you don't leave out any accounts and that everything is properly closed off either against the trading account or the profit and loss account. If you want to follow alongside with me, you can go in your textbook now to pages, just get them quickly, page 278 and 279 in your textbook. And you can follow alongside with me in looking through the 8 steps. So step number 1 says we first must work out our net sales. And to do that, we have to close off our total sales returns against our sales account in the general ledger. Step number 2 then says you take your new sales balance and you take that to the trading account. And you'll remember we saw how we put the net sales on the credit side of the trading account. Step number 3, and this is now the one that will now depend on the inventory system that is being used in your question, is we're going to close off cost of sales to trading account. And if it's perpetual inventory, then you're going to just pick up cost of sales in the trial balance. If it's periodic inventory, then you're going to have to do that full cost of sales calculation. Now you're ready to work out your gross profit by subtracting your cost of sales from your sales. This is now what we've just shown you in our trading account. So far, we've done the first 4 steps out of the 8 steps. Now that we have the gross profit, we're now ready to carry on with the profit and loss account. So now we're going to use that gross profit and we're going to put it into the profit and loss account, and we're going to add to it all the other income accounts, and we are going to subtract all the other expenses. Once you've done that, it will give you the net profit or the net loss of the business, and that net profit or loss will then be taken to the capital account. Because we're dealing with a sole trader, so a sole business owner, so the individual business owner then gets either all the profits or all the losses made in the business. And then the very, very last step is we're also going to close off the drawings against the capital account. And as I said, all of these steps are given to you on pages 278 and 279 in the textbook. And Salome and I will really encourage you to memorize these 8 steps, because each of these steps carry marks. And to optimize your marks in a question, it's important that you must complete all 8 steps if you want to get your maximum marks in a question. So pages 278, 279 of your textbook. Okay, so part one of the question said, prepare the trading account. So that was part one, and that was the one for 7 marks. And so we've now completed our trading account. We've worked out our gross profit. And now we're ready to tackle part two of the question. And part two now says, now it's time to do the profit and loss account. So now to do the profit and loss account, now we are going to work with our other income and our other expenses. So for our profit and loss account and our trading account, we look for the nominal accounts on the trial balance. And remember, your nominal accounts is another name for income and expense accounts. So those are the accounts that we're looking for when the question says do a trading account, do a profit and loss account. Now we've completed the trading account, so we've already used sales. So sales I can cross out. We've already used cost of sales, so I can cross out cost of sales. And we've already used sales returns. So I'm not going to reuse those numbers in the profit and loss account. I'm now only interested in the other income accounts and in the other expense accounts. So when you do a Learning Unit 9 question, as soon as you've used an amount, do the same as I've just done. Make sure that you quickly cross out the numbers that you've already used so that you're not tempted to reuse them in an incorrect place. So we're going to do our profit and loss account now. It looks like this. So the first number that goes into the profit and loss account on the credit side, that is my gross profit. Okay, and you can see it comes from the trading account. So that's the first number that goes in, gross profit. Then I add to the gross profit all the other income. Okay, so these are the other income of the business. And on the debit side, I put in all the other expenses. I subtract the other expenses from the gross profit and the other income. And that is then how we calculate the net profit or the net loss. So net profit is gross profit. There it is, gross profit plus other income minus other expenses. And in this question, then it gave us a net profit. And again, this is your balancing number. So it's the difference between your credit and debit sides. And you can see the details here is capital because remember the profit goes to the owner of the business. Now, let's just say, for example, that this question resulted in a net loss. If it was a net loss, then you will put it, then it will come here on the credit side. So this entry over here, the one in the bright pink block, will not be there. It will now come on the credit side, and that is in the example where the business made a net loss. Now, when to answer a Learning Unit 9 question, remember we said you need to be able to identify the nominal accounts on the trial balance, which is your income and expense accounts. And that brings us back again here to our favorite page, this page 53, figure 2.2. So please make sure you know this page, not just for Learning Unit 9. I've mentioned this page now a few times this morning. So please, this page and page 107 are really two key pages for you to know and understand for the upcoming exam. And remember again, we use debt click, so expenses is debit and income is credit. Okay, then there's another way that we can test you. So far we've showed you, they might ask you to do a post-closing trial balance. They might ask you theory, or like last year, they asked for a trading account and a profit and loss account. And then one other way that we can test you in this section, and that was what was opted for in 2023, was to do the general journal entries. Now, whether the question is asking you to do a trading account and a profit and loss account, or it's asking you for the general journal entries, you are still going to use those 8 steps that I showed you a little bit earlier. And Salama wanted me to remind you guys that you should actually write these 8 steps at the top of your question paper. If you can quickly jot down your 8 steps, then you will make sure that you're optimizing your marks, whether we're asking you for the general ledger accounts or whether we're asking you for the general journal entries. So we're going to use our 8 steps now to prepare the general journal entries for the closing transfers. And remember, again, we're making sure that we're reading our required with care and we understand exactly what it is they want us to do, because they're only going to give you enough time and marks for what it is the question is asking you to do. So they're asking us, so that's the first important thing to see. They're saying journalize the closing transfers. So they're not asking us for the general ledger accounts. They're asking us for the general journal entries. So that's really important. If you miss that, then you're really missing the crux of the question. The second bit of information that they give us is they say that you do not need to do the closing transfers for capital. That is not required. So essentially what they're saying is that steps number 7 and 8 is not needed for this question. If we just go back here, you can see the step number 7 was to take the profit to the capital account and to take your drawings to the capital account. So they said, don't worry about steps 7 and 8. We're not giving marks to those two. And then the last bit of key information, they said, we do not need to give our journal narrations. So with other words, please don't waste time. Don't write down journal narrations because we're not giving you any marks for that. So each time you get to a question, make sure you read your required with great care and you kind of analyze each bit like I've done on my slides, so you don't miss out any key bits of information which can end up costing you marks. Okay, so they said do the general journal entries. So in terms of our steps then, our steps 1 to 4 says that we should take sales returns to sales. We should close off your net sales to the trading account, cost of sales to the trading account, and we need to calculate the gross profit. So our first general journal entries then will be to record steps numbers 1 to 4. Then we are going to deal with the other income and the other expenses. Those need to be taken to the profit and loss account. So with other words, steps 5 and 6 of your 6-step program. And that will then result in us calculating the net profit or the net loss. And remember again, your gross profit is the first step of your net profit calculation. So you start with your gross profit and then you add your other income, which in this question was rent income, and then you subtract your other expenses. If the question required steps 7 and 8, that would have dealt here up here with your drawings, to take your drawings to your capital account and to take this net profit to the capital account. So make sure then that you know your steps and that you are answering the question as is required. You can go and try this question from the 2023 exam paper at home. It's question 6.2. And once you've had a chance to practice the question, then you can come back to this slide. You can see here in the slide, I've set out all of the general journal entries per step. So as you are practicing your entries over the next few days, You can also try and do it like I've done, where I actually say step 1, and then I remember that's to take sales returns to sales. Step 2, close of net sales to trading account. Step 3, close of cost of sales to trading account. Step number 4, calculate gross profit and take it to profit and loss. Step 5, add other income to profit and loss. Step 6, take all the other expenses to profit and loss. So if you follow your 8 steps, then that's your easiest way to maximize your marks in a question like this. So just to recap then, your steps are on pages 278, 279 of your 2026 textbook, and they are as follows. We start with the trading account. The trading account consists out of sales minus sales returns minus cost of sales. That then gives you the gross profit. We add to the gross profit, or the gross profit goes to the profit and loss account. We add to it the other income, we subtract the other expenses, and that then leaves you with the net profit or net loss for the year. The owner then takes the full profit or the full loss into the capital account, and we also close off the drawings against the capital account. And we're going to remember that when it comes to our cost of sales, that we need to check the question, is the question using perpetual inventory or is the question using periodic inventory? I think I'm just going to pause on this slide for a moment, because I think this is kind of quite a nice put together summary of those 8 steps. Okay, I hope, Salama, it's also given you a few minutes to just catch up with all the questions from our students. Then to just conclude here on Learning Unit 9, then there is a number of questions that you can practice. And don't forget to also practice the textbook examples. So that's yet another question that you can do. So there's textbook examples, textbook questions. And remember, at the back of the textbook, there's also the revision questions. When you do your questions, remember now that Learning Unit 9 now includes perpetual inventory, but it also includes a periodic inventory. And a periodic inventory is now new to our 2026 version of the textbook. So if you are using older versions of the textbook, please make sure that you also revise periodic inventory. As always, all the textbook questions have got solutions, and all those solutions are given to you at the back of the textbook. If you do want to practice some past papers, the past papers are available to you on your Emerus landing page. If you click under Library and you go under Library Past Papers, that's where you will find it. For us, of course, you're going to look under A for ACBP 5121. Just remember, the caution again is that you shouldn't go and do past papers too soon. First, make sure you've got your foundation in place by practicing all the textbook examples and questions. And then once your foundation is sound, then right at the end, you can do a few past papers just to see if you'll be able to do a past paper question. But please, we've spoken about this previously as well. You can't just jump from what we've shown you in the class to past papers, because otherwise you're sitting here with a huge gap in your knowledge. And this gap in knowledge, you have to fill this up with textbook questions, textbook examples. And only then will you be able to successfully try past paper questions. Please, students, don't forget to fill your gap up. Otherwise, you're going to struggle in the exam because you won't have the right foundation for your exam paper. So to recap then, our exam tips. Tip number 1, show those workings. And remember, we've now shown you in the earlier video what good workings look like. In good workings, we're able to follow your whole process. How did you calculate this number? What did you add? What did you subtract? That is what good workings look like. Then we're going to be managing our time in the exam. It is a 3-hour paper. It sounds like a long time, but it does go past very, very quickly. So make sure that you get to do all the exam questions by managing your time carefully and not overspending and using too much time on a single question. And then make sure that you are reading all the information in the question and the required carefully so that you know exactly what is being expected of you in the paper. I'm so sorry. I do apologize for the hiccup today with Salama's microphone, because normally Salama has got so many good points that she likes to add for us. So luckily we have got some of Salama's points in the slides. So I'm going to just go through them with you. So Salama always reminds you to connect the theory to the story. And remember earlier we also said to try and personalize it, to connect it to things that you can relate to. Start preparing as soon as possible. So as soon as we finished here today, go straight back to your learning space and keep up with your preparation. Remember, you can't just cram it in the night before the paper. You need to be making a consistent effort from today onwards. Salama also always reminds us to work with a friend and to maybe work in study groups where you'll have an opportunity to showcase your understanding to your friends, because that also helps you to see where there's still some gaps in your knowledge. This is an important one that Salama always reminds us of, is don't be late on that morning. Make sure you are getting to the campus very early. Rather sit on campus, have maybe a hot chocolate or something on campus, and then you can be relaxed and you know you're there and you don't need to panic or stress, because we want you to give yourself the best opportunity to get your best marks in the exam. That comes too with a second point that Salama always reminds us of, is to stay calm in the exam. Because when we start getting anxious or panicked, that's when we start making mistakes by not reading all the required, by leaving out key bits of information. And then afterwards you think, oh, I knew that. Why did I leave it out? So really just take deep breaths. Say to yourself, I've got this. I can do this. I've done my preparation, and don't give up. It's not over until the 3 hours is not over. So don't start thinking, oh, I don't know, I can't do this. Just keep working at that 150 marks. Just keep working for those 3 hours to maximize your marks. Be confident in your own ability. And that also helps to keep you calm and to make sure that you'll have the best result in the exam. I'm sure Salama is putting this in the chats, but on behalf of Salama, I'm also just going to wish you all the best. She always wishes all the students the very best in the exam. And then from my side, my tips that I just want to remind you of is stick to the allocated time. So it's 1.2 minutes per mark. So remember, for every exam question, to quickly do that calculation to see how long can you spend on the question. Make sure you're reading everything with care, that you're not making a mistake by leaving out something important. Show us all of your workings. And this is a big one, students. Please remember, in a formal assessment, you are only allowed to use pen. We still often find students that actually do not comply with this, and this is on the cover page of your answer booklet. on the cover page of your answer booklet, it actually says that you can only use pen. So this is a university policy, so make sure that you comply with this. Then on behalf of myself and Salama, I just want to thank you very much for joining us throughout this semester. We've had such fun journeying with you and going through all of the work from semester 1. We're looking forward to also seeing you in semester 2, where we'll start again with the revision sessions for accounting 1B. And then a big thank you to Salama. Can everyone send Salama, please, much love? She's been so busy with answering all of your questions. So please just send much love to Salama. And thank you, everyone, for joining us and for being part of this revision session. Great. Thank you there for all the love.